Yeah. Okay, let's get to Louise Uspton. And I love the reference from earlier. Upston girl. I would love to figure out to see if there could be an AI generated song for that.
I am going to have to repeat some of the things I said in the first reading because clearly the opposition weren't listening. So the first thing that I want to confirm is the fact that this piece of legislation is not about saving money. This is about a piece of legislation to ensure that sex-based discrimination cases that have merit, that have claim, are able to progress through the system in a robust, transparent way. And the reason it's being passed under urgency is so that we don't have claims in different processes under different regimes. So it's pretty simple, it's pretty clear. It's something that governments do to ensure that the courts aren't frustrated, but more importantly, Mr. Speaker, those who want to have a claim are not trying to operate in two different systems. The other thing that I want to say very clearly is there is no claim that will be blocked. And that is another myth that the other side have repeated in their speeches. The other thing, Mr. Speaker, in terms of the government, because the previous speaker talked specifically about nurses, about carers, about midwives, and I would invite the other side just to reflect our government's record level of investment in health. Who do you think operates the health system if it's not nurses, midwives, carers? So I would just hold your horses on that side of the House. When we think about the level of investment, when we think about things like Family Boost that ensure more parents get access to support so their children can get access to early childhood education. And our focus in education is to ensure that actually teachers can focus on teaching the basics brilliantly. The amount of resources that have been rolled out to teachers to make it easier for them to do their work has been a significant part of the government's investment. The other thing that this bill is not about an alternative way for workers to negotiate pay rounds. It is a very different conversation from sex-based discrimination.
Point of order, the Honourable Carmel Soraya.
I don't think it's standard practice in this House to stand up and do a speech and a second reading on what this bill is not about. And there's been a couple of points made on that line by that member, and I think she should stick to what the bill is about, Mr. Speaker.
I think this is where in a second reading both sides have drifted from the main purpose of a second reading, which of course is to speak about what happened at Select Committee. There hasn't been a Select Committee that has opened it. That's why I haven't redirected any of the comments from the left, but it does give the opportunity to reply to some of them. However, the member has been here. She does know the general rules of second reading.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And it is also the job in a second reading in a debate in this House, this is a debating chamber, to put the myths and the incorrect statements that the opposition are stating to bed. That's my job as a government speaker, and I will not refrain from that. So I will reiterate, this bill is not about, because unfortunately what happened under the previous regime and all of the speeches that I've heard so far confuse the 2 points about when there is union bargaining for pay rounds. That is a very different concept to sex-based discrimination. And it would be really helpful if the opposition could understand the difference between the two. That is actually part of why we are here debating this legislation today, because we want pay equity legislation to be about pay equity. And as I said in my previous speech, there are, of course, many workers across New Zealand, male and female, that don't earn the levels they would like to earn. That is a separate issue from sex-based discrimination. The other thing I want to come back to is the comparators, because this is a really important part of the bill to make it really clear about a framework for comparisons, for comparators, and actually getting us more in line with our international countries that we would normally compare ourselves to. And if you, some of the feedback, for example, Mr. Speaker, that we had received with the previous legislation was fisheries officers being compared to librarians. Now, I think most people, if you ask them on the street to say, would you expect that those are jobs of equal value and equal conditions, they would not accept that that was a suitable comparator. So we need to have a pay equity process that is clearly understood, that is robust, that is sustainable into the future. And Mr. Speaker, that is why I'm proud to support this piece of legislation in the second reading.
Well, I mean, yes, custom officers and librarians aren't the same thing, but they do very critical jobs in our communities. Custom officers stop things like meth coming into the country, whereas librarians ensure that people have books and research material available that people can educate themselves, such as the dangers of being on meth. I thought that's a good comparison.
The other thing is that librarians are a public-facing group, so part of their job is they have to interact with the public. So they will be interacting with people that are potentially violent. They'll be interacting with people that are drunk or high or things like that come in. So in terms of a risk assessment, you could say that the risk assessment of a fisheries officer is different to that of a librarian, potentially, but there is still risk involved.
Yeah, a librarian actually often is the person who helps someone having trouble navigating a government department system as well.
Yes.
And that's a lot of work our local councils with our local ratepayers' money are spent to help people navigate central government services, because in some towns they just don't have those facilities available, like Shannon, where there is no WINS office. You've got one GP clinic, you've got one petrol station, and the biggest government organisation that sits in the town is the local police station with 2 cops and the school.
Well, I think even Levin, they merged the library and the so where you get your licenses and all that sort of thing. So it's all
it was the information centre. So in Levin, the information centre was always, so the information centre had the contract for the AA, and they moved the information centre into the library.
Yeah, and there's a cafe there as well. And so it's actually you're dealing with quite a diverse range of people, especially in rural communities. It's not a low risk job.
No,
like teaching and social work isn't either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it is, often it's your libraries and your post offices become that place. And yes, are typically run by females. One of my great aunties, Auntie Stick, worked in the post office for years, including when my mum was born, and my mum was the fifth child. Auntie Stick took a 6-month transfer to help out my grandmother with the fact that she, had, having to bring up 5 children. They've just moved out from Wellington to Tawa into a bigger house, and it's, it was one of those things there. But, Auntie Stick, worked at the post office in Wellington for 6 months to help out her sister, look after it with 5 kids around there. And I think there always were female jobs that helped it. My grandfather on that side of the family, I don't know what the hell he did.
Well, that was the other thing too, because you were able to bring children along to work as well, or you were working outside of, it was part of your home. So the shop would be at the bottom level and the kids would be upstairs, and that
sounds like the corner dairy.
Yeah, and so
which
in centralising services, they've sort of cut people off from being able to work and have their home, and lower the cost of actually running a business as well.
Yeah,
because the childcare costs, I was hearing your previous guest, they're horrific.
Yeah, it worked out like one of them would cost 70 grand a year to send 4 children to paid childcare.
Yeah.
That's some very serious money. I mean, put it this way, many of our elected councillors around the country, with probably the exception of Wellington City Council, don't earn that much to be on there in the public roles. How much does a teacher earn as a salary? I mean, put it this way, my grandma's retiring salary didn't quite hit 60k, and it was up in the high figures of 1990s money.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's the presumption too that mums want to go out and work when they've got really young kids, and you sort of force people into it needing 2 incomes.
Yeah.
And you're sort of in this catch-22. And in some cases, it would be better if you just sort of allowed mums to have longer at home with the kids.
Yeah, and you can't keep relying on the grandparents either. I mean, not everyone has, not every family has the parents/grandparents living locally. I mean, I do know my grandparents moved to Paraparaumu to be closer to their 3 under 18 grandchildren at the time. And I mean, that played a very influential part for my brothers in their college years, because they lived in Otaki, but they went to Kapiti College. And it helped them, my grandma, part of the reason why I think she sat there and lived, went through her 80s very well was because the fact that she was, looking after my brothers 2 days. It was 3 days a week, but each of them only were there for 2 days at a time.
Yeah.
But it made up a hell of a lot. Yeah. And
But nowadays, they've structured society, so it's really hard for people to do that.
Yeah, and not everyone has that opportunity available.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to our Facebook.